The exposure triangle, as it's commonly referred to, are the three basic values for any camera of any age, which are the ISO for digital or ASA for using film, your shutter speed, and your aperture. Now please note again that I have referred to these as values rather than numbers. I don't want anybody getting hung up on the math at this point. We'll get into that a little bit later on. Right now we'll concentrate more on how they affect the photographs that you're taking. ISO is the new term for digital photography, which stands for International Standards Organization. ASA, or film speed, was the American Standards Association. These are just the terms that were developed for the time that they came to be. I know for a lot of people, though, understanding what some of the acronyms mean will help take some of the mud out of what they're trying to understand. Like kilometers per hour and miles per hour, or Celsius and Fahrenheit, ISO and ASA run along a similar type scale. The lower the number in general is going to give you the highest quality photograph and the most detail available. Now, as you increase the number, you are also increasing your camera's ability to capture light and get that photograph that you want, which in a lot of cases can be a good thing. However, if you do get too high, or higher than what your sensor can handle, you're going to notice that you're going to start getting grainy photographs. So this is where you need to balance. With today's digitals, it's a lot easier to get a higher quality photograph out of higher ISO settings than it ever was. I've managed to get some really nice prints that I've been able to blow up to 12 by 18 under concert lighting set at 3200 ISO, and I love them. I mean, obviously not done with a 1995 camera, so sometimes what we're talking about is going to be equipment related, but if you're not going out and shooting concerts and having to publish them, you probably don't need to go out and get expensive equipment. A typical usable ISO setting on most cameras right now would be around 100 to 1600. This would still give you a nice, decent quality print. When you get into the professional grade cameras, you're looking at ISOs of 50 and possibly up to 102,400. I don't know anybody that shoots or prints at 102,400, but you can definitely print really, really nice stuff down at concerts at 3,200 and 4,000 without too much issue. Another thing that higher ISO settings are good for is they will help you extend the range of your flash. And this is something we'll get into a little bit further on. Aperture. Aperture is the size of the opening within the lens. Aperture controls light and depth of field. It is measured in fractal stops, or f-stops, and is probably the most difficult for a new photographer to understand. Depth of field is the amount of area within your photograph that's in focus. A smaller f-stop number gives you a larger aperture opening, allows in more light, but gives you less depth of field. This is what you would often see in a portrait, where the person's face is in focus, but the background is not. Now conversely, if you were to do a landscape photo, you would want to use a higher f-stop number, which is going to close the aperture. It's going to allow in less light, but you get more of your photograph in focus. Shutter speeds are often referred to as exposure or time value. It is just the amount of time that your shutter is actually open, allowing your camera to capture light. There are various reasons to use different shutter speeds. If you have a tripod and low light and you want to get a lot of your scene in focus, you would use a slow shutter speed. If you're doing sports or action, people running, people jumping, want to catch those water droplets, then you want to increase your shutter speed. We'll talk about this more as we go. ISO, aperture, and shutter speed are the base values to get a photograph. Digital cameras offer us the advantage that we are able to look on the back immediately and see what we shot. We can also press the info button and find out what they were shot at and make any adjustments that we might like to do. And probably one of the most advantageous is that you can shoot as many as you like, delete what you don't want, and you don't have to pay for developing what you don't keep. So that's kind of nice. Join me next. We're going to talk about the DigiVary modes and some of the presets, and see you then.